Have you ever wondered how paramedics and emergency care responders are able to handle witnessing traumatic incidents day after day without letting it affect them emotionally? Today, let's uncover the truth behind the myth that emergency care providers are always emotionally detached, because that is not true. Welcome back to Behind the Sirens. I am Nomti Mvula, your host, and today's episode we're tackling another myth whereby people believe that emergency responders have no emotional attachment, which is sadly not true. Let's set the record straight and take a closer look as to what really happens behind the scenes after seeing all those traumas or just treating any other patient. Because as for being emotionally detached, that is not true. And as for people thinking that you have to be brave in order for you to be a paramedic or an emergency care responder, that is also not true. So we're talking about that today. So being in emergency care means that we see people in some of their worst days, So we are stuck with the fact that we need to balance our empathy and professionalism. This delicate balance is what allows us to provide high quality of care without letting our emotions really affect our judgment. Because if we also start now being too emotional, that might affect how we treat the patients. And we definitely don't want that, right? I'm also sure you don't want that. The idea that we don't have emotions, or we are emotionally detached, or we are brave, it's far from the truth. I can tell you, that is not even close to what we go through. Let me just share a moment that is still, even today, is stuck with me. So in one of the night shifts, I was working and I received a call, and on the call I can even hear, because it's a WhatsApp group call, I could hear that the person who's requesting assistance is already emotionally affected, and they told me that it is an incident whereby there is also kids involved. Like, I am a parent myself. That is number one. I'll just put it out there. And hearing that, and unfortunately, it was far. When I looked at the response time, it was more than 30 minutes. Normally, just looking at the GPS. But knowing that we have the shortage of EMS personnel, and I know that the area that they were they were calling for help for, it's far, and I know there is no one closer to that, and we're still gonna tackle that, guys. That's why we're here, so that we understand that why sometimes you call an ambulance and it's delayed, it takes some time, maybe they're busy somewhere. But as far as I was, because 30 minutes, it's quite a long time for responding to an emergency. But I did just try my best and responded like crazy to that call. As I said, the caller just said, like, kids are scattered all over the road, we need help. So as I'm like, that affected me, but I still had to also think of getting to that scene safely, so because if I now drive recklessly, I might not get there. So those emotions don't start when we actually see the patient or the incident. They start from the moment when we receive a call, But again, we still need to make that delicate decision as to how are we gonna get there safely and make sure that we are there to provide the help that is required. So even on arrival on scene, I had to calm down. I had to balance my empathy and being able to treat even someone who, like, I'll just bluntly put it out there because we're being real here. We're not really covering things. But if someone has put those kids in a situation of them now being in the such a critical incident, because obviously it has to be an adult. It was not a matter of a kid was driving and then they were involved in an incident. No. The adult was so reckless that he ended up in that accident, and unfortunately the kids were involved. I had to treat that very same person. I can't be angry with them. I can't cry because honestly that day, like, I was holding myself to say, okay, you are here to provide help. You are not here to judge. Just try and be professional, handling those small bodies, and yet have to treat the person who is responsible for all this. I couldn't, but I tried my best and I did what I had to do. It was not up until I get to base where I started letting it all in and realize and say sometimes as adults we just don't think about these things, and it is very important. So it is such things that you do have emotions, but unfortunately the platform does not allow you to be now maybe reacting otherwise or treating some people otherwise or differently. You still need to do your best to save a life, because that's what we are, that's what we do, and deal with the emotions later. And that's what happened. I did my best. I will never forget. It still stuck with me, but unfortunately it is part of what we do. So we're not brave, we're not emotionally detached, but we have to balance and make sure that we provide the best care. And it's like that is our life basically. So please, let's erase that paramedics are emotionally detached, because we're definitely not. I feel like I'm being too serious. I hope you get the point. Now I want you to picture this. You are in an emergency situation and maybe your loved one is being treated by the paramedic. Would you prefer them being emotional, overwhelmed, or would you have them be calm and collected and treat your loved one professionally? Like, please do have that thought in mind, because that is the struggle, or that is what we deal with, whereby we have to balance the professionalism again with our emotions, and that is just part of the job. So the studies or the research have shown that emotional resilience is the key in emergency responders, because for us it is basically a learned skill that helps us stay strong during calls, and it doesn't mean that we are detached. So basically we rely on debriefs, peer support, and also professional counseling is available, and we also have pastors that are available to allow us that platform to process this, because without handling all these things which we see, it might end up affecting us in the long run. The emotional support is actually very important for us to make sure that we don't carry the weight of our work alone. If we feel the need, we know that the support is there. I'm sure you now asking yourself then, how do we cope? So I'm sure coping mechanisms are different for all of us, but basically it's just to take some time off work. Like, hence we get off days. On your off days, you basically have maybe a hobby, maybe you go in a different world other than things that will require or they will remind you about emergency medical care. Maybe go play pedal since it's now the in thing, or some they will just maybe talk to others, like maybe tell stories, obviously without mentioning names. That will help also. And some they do journaling, but at some point in time you do have that one call that you want to talk about, that you want to process, and that's how we cope. And by just having other hobbies that are basically different from being in the EMS environment, take a few holidays there and there. And I don't think it's actually a problem that, as I said, if you feel that you are emotionally overwhelmed, I can bet that wherever you work, because I would be generalizing, but some form of help is always there, and someone to talk to is always there, and people are always willing to listen. So basically, that's how we cope. And with that being said, I'm really sure by now you are aware that we actually do have feelings, and whole lot of them. So basically, the myth that emergency responders have no emotions is far from the truth. We actually do have emotions, and we do care, and we do our best just to keep that professional face, because we've chose to do this, and we are there to be strong for, especially in times where people or patients are at their worst situations. So point is, we do have emotions, but we try and still do our best for each and every call that we go to, despite what we see, what we hear, and it's just who we are. Not just it's being a job, but you really being in this industry, end up learning if to not put your emotions out there, because they might be portrayed as being unprofessional, basically. But let's do away with the myth, because it's not true. It's far from truth, and I'll keep on emphasizing that it's really not true. Thank you for listening to Behind the Sirens. Don't forget to follow for more myth busting and stories from the field. If this episode resonated with you or somehow changed the way you see the emergency responders, let us know in the comment section, or just like. Until next time, take care and stay safe.